Welcome to the Stronger Tides Podcast, the podcast for small business entrepreneurs and corporate executives to learn more about increasing their client or employee retention through a group cruise program. Ready to drop anchor? Here's your host, travel advisor Rita Perez.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am your lovely host again for another week. Today is going to be dedicated to part 2 of the cruise ship safety, some of the guidelines that I had gone through last week. And thinking about last week, I feel like I may have sounded like as if I was trying to be like, yes, that like verify if certain things were true or false. But that really was not my intention. Everything that CLIA puts out is true. It was more me trying to confirm that, yes, this situation is true, and I have seen it be true because of X example that has occurred in my real life. So I hope that didn't confuse anybody with me saying like, yes, this is true. It was just me confirming that what they are saying is true and me putting a real life example of why I know that it is true. So let's get into this week. I know last week we kind of stopped where we were talking about inspections being done on the cruise ships to maintain the safety standards and the records that are happening. So some of the things that get inspected on these types of inspections are the medical facilities, the children activity centers, the water systems, the swimming pools, the galleys, which are the kitchens on board, the dining rooms, the common areas, and the ventilation systems. And I'm not sure how much we got into ventilation systems, if at all, but I know that they are playing a very important role now and moving forward with the safety on the cruise ships in regards to the virus and trying to prevent cross-contamination in the cruise ship environment. So I know that a lot of cruise lines have come out saying that they're upgrading the ventilation systems. If they haven't already done so, that a lot of the ventilation systems are going to be individual. So each cabin is going to have their own system and it's going to be separate. So whatever is going on in their cabin will not affect another cabin. And that's very reassuring to know also. Something else that always happens and will continue to happen more strongly than it did before is the pre-boarding health screening for passengers and crew. And that does help prevent illness on board. Before, the main illness that people were trying to make sure that didn't get on cruise ships was norovirus. And I did talk a lot about that in part 1 of this series. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, go ahead and listen to pod 1 also. So, and I can attest to this, that they're increasing screenings, and this happened. So the last the last cruise that I was on, seems so long ago, was January 30th, 2020 is when it departed. And I remember going onto that ship and in the boarding process, excuse me, being asked if I had ever gone to China, if I had recently been to China, if I had been around anybody that had recently gone to China. So, and I want to say that because I want you to know how serious the cruise lines were taking it long before other areas were taking it seriously. And I even remember laughing because I myself did not take it that serious in the beginning. I remember like chuckling when they asked me about these China questions. I'm like, well, this is just going to go away. And here we are, what is it, like 6 months later? And it hasn't gone away, and we don't even know when that's going to happen. But the point of that story was to let you know that the cruise lines have been having this at a forefront for a while, for a long while. Even before they were mandated to stop running, which was March 13th, I believe. Friday, March 13th, Friday the 13th. So what do they do in these health screenings? It's typically a health questionnaire that you have to fill out, and you have to answer certain questions like, has your stomach been bothering you the past 24 hours? Like, it just asks you about symptoms, because certain symptoms are indicative of some things like norovirus. So the enhanced screening is, of course, going to include things about the coronavirus. And specifically with the coronavirus, what I know and what was happening before things got shut down is that people were having their temperature taken before getting on board the ship. And that will happen moving forward. Like, temperatures will be taken, another screening questionnaire will be happening, and I'm sure it's going to have more in-depth questions specifically for coronavirus. Now, I don't know if this is going to continue or how long it would continue for, because not everybody has a fever with COVID-19. So it's pretty hard to say what's going to be happening in the future. But if you do present with a fever still afterwards, you're not going to be allowed to be boarding the ship. And I think even members of your family will not be able to board. I don't know the specific details. They haven't provided that information. I can only assume that some sort of, maybe not compensation, maybe it would be compensation. You would be compensated for your travel to the port, and then you would get your money back from the cruise that you're missing because of the situation. There's just a lot of things to think about. And I'm not even sure if the cruise lines have anything set in stone. So this is kind of one of those things to just keep in mind, hold, and know that it could be changing at any moment. I do know that many of the major cruise lines right now are looking at those protocols and trying to figure out what is going to be the best fit for everybody and keep everybody safe and also happy. CLIA cruise line members have maintained an exceptional safety records, and cruise ships today are the safest that have ever sailed. I'd say this is true. You know, my first cruise that I've ever sailed on is in 1999. I can't tell you the difference between 1999, because that was me as like a young teenager, and what was going on. I can't tell you the difference, like, through the years from 1999 through now, through 2020. Gosh, 21 years, my goodness. But I can tell you just from my personal firsthand experience. Hey, interested in getting an actual numbers comparison of a land retreat versus a cruise retreat? You know, honestly, when I was putting this document together, I couldn't even believe the great difference between the numbers. Visit StrongerTidesPodcast.com to be added to my weekly email list and get the download now. Back to the show. Is that I know the cruise ships are cleaned frequently, and they're cleaned viciously, and they have onboard medical crew that it's going to become more robust. I know that for sure. That has been said through the cruise lines, that they cannot continue to move forward with the current medical procedures that they have on board. And that's not saying that the medical is lacking on board. It's just saying there's new rules going on in the world right now. So remember, 9/11 changed a lot of things for the airline industry. I remember being able to go right to the gate and say goodbye to my family members that were visiting me. Now we can't do that anymore. I remember even after 9/11, I forget when it was, where the guy tried to bring a shoe bomb on board an airplane. So that is why we have to take our shoes off through the screening process now. Certain things what's the quote? There's the one constant in life is always change. And so it's just how we deal with things. So what I say now may be changing 6 months from now because some new development may have happened in the cruise industry. What I'm saying is that the cruise lines are always up to date and they're always evolving. And it's not that the cruise lines are doing this themselves. It's also because of CLIA, the Cruise Line International Association, is kind of like, they hold them to a strict set of standards that they may not have done so before. And that's why being a member of CLIA and going on CLIA cruise lines is super, super, super important. Even as worldwide cruise ship capacity grew between 2009 and 2019 by more than 68%, the number of operational incidents has decreased by more than 40%. All crew members, regardless of their specific job duties, must be trained in safety, security, and first aid, including emergency and evacuation procedures, signals and alarms, fire prevention, and beyond. And I know if you're a cruiser, you have seen this live in action. There's always at least one safety procedure that happens. It's usually on a port day because that's when a lot of us guests aren't present on the ship. But I know you have seen them like bringing down a life raft and going through that. So in college, I don't know if I mentioned this before. In college, in 2007, I was actually a part of a cruise line management course as part of my coursework for my hospitality degree. And so I actually got to sit in on one of these, not like the life raft going down, but I got to sit into one of the evacuation procedures where they train, I don't know, maybe it was like 50 crew member at the time. And it's a regulatory training, and it's a training that has to be done frequently. So on a rotation, crew members are going in and out of this training. So like, let's say maybe it's everybody who was hired in March, 6 months later, now they have to. I don't know what the specifics are, but I do know that the crew members do get regular training. Now going with that, there's been a little update. I don't know if you have heard, but Royal Caribbean announced that they are changing their muster drill procedures. Woo-hoo-hoo! I know, like I heard it and I was like, what does this mean? So when I had heard more about it, I'm like, this is incredible. And this also circles back to that the cruise line industry makes sure that they are trying to be at the forefront of changes and address things. So I don't know. They had said that the last major change in the muster drill happened about 10 years ago. And if you've been cruising for as long as I have and longer, you know that for the muster drill, you actually had to take your life jacket with you, and you had to put it on and like demonstrate that you knew how to put it on and be safe during the drill. Well, I guess 10 years ago, they took that away. So you haven't had to take your life jacket with you. So now, in an effort to also be safe, and I heard that this was like a year in the making, so it wasn't necessarily because of COVID-19, but it was kind of like spearheaded like even more because of COVID-19. So instead of having like this big huddle with everybody in your muster drill stations, it looks like it's going to be a much more relaxed muster process where you will be able to go ahead and listen to a video, and I think it's from your cabin on your own time, but it must happen before the ship departs port. I would say anywhere between like maybe 1:30 and 4:30, so you have a gap of a couple hours to get it done, and then report to your station and then just verify that you've completed it. I don't think the full information has been done, but I like that it is not in a big group setting anymore. I like that you can do it on your own time, so you're not like strict like, at 3 o'clock we have to go to the muster drill now. Those are the two main things that I really like, and it does help with safety and staying away from the larger groups during that. Cruise ships are among the most scrutinized vessels at sea. Beginning at design and construction, the International Maritime Organization, flag and port state authorities, and classification societies provide strict safety standards and oversight throughout a ship's operations. Cruise ships are one of the safest vacation options in the world as a result of comprehensive protocols and multiple layers of security. Whoop, whoop. That is true. And there are tons of cameras on board. Tons of like, if you think that you're trying to have a private moment with somebody somewhere, I'm sure it's being recorded. Major cruise lines have sophisticated security departments run by former federal, state, and military law enforcement officials, and trained ship security are on call 24/7. Proof of identity is required to access the cruise ship, and only crew, ticketed passengers, and those on a pre-approved list may come on board. I am looking at my time and I went way over again. So I'm going to end this here, but I think I've been able to give you a lot of really great information on cruise ship safety and the new updates in regards to the updated muster drill. If you have any questions for me on cruise ship safety and any of the updates and changes that are happening in the industry, please go ahead and reach out to me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, or you can shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to chat about it. Thanks so much. You guys be safe and wear a mask.
Thanks for joining us on the Stronger Tides podcast. Please subscribe to our podcast. And if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating or a share with your colleagues. Find us on social media at Rita Ventures Group Cruising and online at ritaventures.net. Until next time, happy sailing.